This year's World No Tobacco Day theme is Tobacco and Heart Disease, which focuses on tobacco use as a key risk factor in heart-related diseases, including stroke. According to the World Health Organization, the tobacco epidemic is one of the biggest public health threats the world has faced. Tobacco use and exposure to secondhand smoking contributes to about 12% of all heart diseases. In Africa alone, more than 140,000 adults from the age of 30 die yearly from tobacco-related diseases.
So our effort is to engage and ensure that Nigerians know the harmful effect of tobacco use, because tobacco causes all manners of illness. It affects every part of the body. It leads to cancer, it aggravates asthma, it leads to heart problems, because this year is dealing with tobacco and heart problems. It leads to heart problems, it affects reproductive organs and the rest of it. So every part of the human body is affected by the use of tobacco, and most of the time citizens don't know about this. The worst aspect of it is that tobacco contains a product called nicotine, and nicotine is very, very addictive.
Right from the point of cultivating tobacco crops, you have what is known as the green leaf disease that comes with the exposure of tobacco products on the farms.
There have been calls for more policies and greater political commitment to regulating tobacco and promoting smoke-free environments. This, it is believed, will help contribute to improving the health and well-being of all people.
In terms of working progressively towards a reduction in tobacco use and consumption is to, first of all, have in place very strict policies and laws that tackles at the heart of the issue of tobacco use.
So we are also calling on the National Assembly, both the federal government and that's the executive and National Assembly, for them to expedite action, for us to have a regulation that will help us to administer the National Control Act.
Africa is believed to be at the receiving end of tobacco trade, and this has resulted in the call for the ratification of the illicit trade protocol on tobacco. Kemi Balogun, TVC News, Abuja.
All right, yes, it's World No Tobacco Day, and that's why we're beaming the searchlight on this one. We have a guest in Abuja. He's the acting, that's the,
the acting
country head of the World Health Organization, Dr. Rex Mpazanje. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
All right, good to have you. Let's begin from what the WHO has been advising nations, including countries like Nigeria, where some 17,500 people lose their lives every year, to raise taxes to make it more expensive for people to be able to access or buy tobacco products. Tell us about that.
Yes, indeed. WHO has been promoting quite a number of strategies to make sure that countries are able to control tobacco use. And one of the strategies is one of raising taxes. In 2017, WHO published a report that shows that this strategy has actually been very effective in most countries, reducing tobacco use by almost 5% in developing countries and 4% in developed countries. So it's a strategy that we continue to promote in countries including Nigeria to make sure that we can continue to control the use of tobacco and make tobacco as much as possible not reachable by children, because the taxes have been found that they affect children significantly, that children are not able to initiate smoking. But they also do affect adults who are already smoking, that indeed quite a large number do quit smoking. So it is an effective strategy that WHO will continue to promote, and indeed Nigeria has keyed in to make sure that this strategy also be implemented in the country.
All right, Dr. Rex, over the years, you have come up with, the organization has come up with so many themes, yearly themes. Well, this year's theme is tobacco and heart diseases. What informed this year's theme?
This year's theme is informed on the need really to raise awareness. One of the big strategies for dealing with tobacco is to make people aware. And one of the areas of awareness that WHO and partners found that was weak was the association of tobacco and heart diseases. As I think in the earlier message, tobacco causes all sorts of ill health effects throughout the body. It affects every organ. But one of the key organs, and one of the, as we have shown in the data this year, is the heart. And when tobacco affects the heart, that alone almost contributes to 12% of all the deaths from tobacco in the world. So WHO is looking at raising awareness on that so that people are aware that quite a number of the heart diseases, hypertension, and other heart diseases are really as a result of smoking tobacco, either directly or indirectly through indoor air pollution. So this is an important theme for this year, to make sure that everybody is aware, and therefore we push forward with the tobacco control measures.
And of course, tobacco usage takes a toll not only on the cardiovascular health, but also on the economy of nations. Nigeria, for example, spends, in 2015 alone, spent about $591 million on tobacco consumption. Talk to us about the economic impact of this, both in countries like Nigeria and, of course, globally.
Yes, tobacco affects many other areas, including the economy, and also impoverishes people. As you have already indicated, tobacco has no nutritional value, but it is addictive. So people find themselves, because of the addiction, compelled to buy tobacco that has no nutritional value at all, and spend quite an enormous amount of money. And usually these are poor people that they need that money for something else valuable, for food, for schooling, and other effects. So tobacco sends people who are already poor into severe poverty. Also, tobacco, we know usually the farming of it involves use of children in terms of child labor. And tobacco makes those children not benefit from schooling by being engaged in tobacco farming, and impoverishes them more, because those are little children from poor families that schooling would have sort of uplifted them and be able to give their prospects for the future. But it makes those children not being able to benefit from schooling and remain in the poverty trap. So tobacco is quite an impoverishing commodity, apart from the conditions of heart disease that it causes.
All right, Dr. Rex, WHO this year has come up with quite a number of measures that it is encouraging countries to implement. Are there ways, are there measures by the WHO to monitor if countries comply?
Yes, there are measures, and many countries, including Nigeria, have taken them forward. The main and major of those measures is the enactment of the tobacco law, and Nigeria has done that. And in implementing that tobacco law, the enactment, the necessary regulations, and Nigeria has a committee that oversees the tobacco control measures. Through that committee that oversees the implementation of tobacco measures, WHO connects and links with that committee to make sure that they follow on other aspects of tobacco use, the data, and other sort of elements that the world needs to know. And also the country itself does report to WHO globally. Indeed, this year, Nigeria and many other countries will only be reporting to the World Health Assembly on tobacco. So those are the measures that are in place to make sure that we are able to monitor the use of tobacco in countries.
Speaking of measures in place, Nigeria, I know, has a Tobacco Control Act. And in spite of that, you have a 4% yearly increase in the use of tobacco and, of course, the negative impact it's having on the population. How effective, really, to your mind, are these measures put in place by countries, including Nigeria?
The measures are very effective, but we need to do more. We need to do more to make people aware. We have an act, we have a law, but we need to make people more aware of that act. And not only aware, we need to make the enforcement bodies also take forward the enforcement of that act. Because that act provides, for example, for tobacco-free environments. We need to make sure that all public environments are free of tobacco smoke. Or indoor working environments, houses are free of tobacco smoke. So we need to make people more aware to enforce those laws. And also we need to take forward some of the aspects of that act, which is to do with the taxation, and make sure that those taxation is implemented. And indeed also other aspects that are dealing with warnings, raising billboards, or indeed putting warnings on the cigarette packets. So we need to make people more aware. And as I mentioned earlier, we also need to make people aware of the ill effects of tobacco. Not only the causes of ill health, including heart diseases, but also the impoverishing effects, so that people are fully aware and then can make informed decisions. And help each other either to quit tobacco or indeed to avoid the children from initiating smoking in the first place.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Rex Mpazanje, acting country head, World Health Organization in Nigeria. Thank you very much indeed for talking to us on the Tobacco World Day.
Thank you. Of course, we'll still be talking about this.
Thank you, Naike, and thank you, Ngozi.
Thank you very much. We have another guest we'll be expecting very shortly. You know, talking about passive smoking, a lot more people actually die from inhalation of, you know, passive smoke than people who actively smoke, which is really, really very dangerous. A lot of people, and he talked about children there. You would agree that a lot of parents, actually, especially fathers, send their children to buy cigarettes for them, number one, and you know, you wonder where that habit actually starts from.
All right.
When a child sees a parent, you know, smoking and all of that.
All right, that's why we're going to be talking to an environmentalist, and then we also you know, look at the impact on the environment and all of that.
Absolutely.
When we delve into that.
Yeah.
It's TVC Breakfast. We'll take a break now, and when we come back, we'll talk more. Stay with us.
All right, you're welcome back. We've since been joined by Director Environmental Rights Action, Bode Olufemi, still talking about the World No Tobacco Day. Good morning and thanks for joining us from Abuja studio.
Good morning.
Okay, you confirm that you can hear us loud and clear. Okay, now let's even talk about the environmental impact of tobacco usage. What are your findings, especially as it concerns Nigeria?
Well, I think one thing we first have to establish is the fact that tobacco is a killer in all its ramifications. Tobacco kills whoever uses it, either by smoking, by chewing, or by shisha, whatever form that tobacco is presented, it is a killer. And it currently kills about 7 million people. And one thing that is so bad about tobacco is that it does not only kill the user, it also kills whoever surrounds the user. What is called the environmental tobacco smoke, or secondhand smoking. And so if you have a husband that smokes and you are the wife, you're likely going to have, you know, those diseases that are associated with smoking, like cancer, high blood pressure, low birth weight, the rest of them. And it is actually estimated that about 500,000 people die every year as a result of exposure to environmental tobacco smoke. Not only that, it's also the fact that for us as environmentalists, tobacco growing is a stressor on the environment. You know, you cut woods. For those of us that have been to Iseyin, Ogun area, or for your state where tobacco is grown, it damages the environment by a process that is called wood clearing, where large amount of wood has to be cut, the vegetation has to be leveled in order to, technically speaking, fry tobacco leaves so that they can transport it to, to those companies. Huge amounts of chemicals are used. You know, your presentation spoke about, you know, what we call the green leaf diseases, where kids, children that are exposed to tobacco products actually have, you know, some diseases that are associated with tobacco leaves as a result of the chemicals, as a result of those, you know, contents that are known in tobacco. These are, you know, worrying to all of us, and that's why we join the world today to raise awareness among governments, among stakeholders, among the populace, even with the media, that, you know, we need to rise up and in unison to take action to see that there is a global reduction on the use of tobacco.
All right. A report emerged that I found that indicated that despite the risks involved or attached to tobacco, not quite a number of people are aware of the dangers associated with tobacco. Why does it always seem that it's only when it is Tobacco Day
that we talk
about the dangers?
You know, you see, well, let me say that in Nigeria, I mean, activity started scaling up on tobacco since 2003, and here we are, 2018. It took us almost a decade to be able to have a national law that is now called the National Tobacco Control Law. And as rightly said in the last session, I mean, we also need to sit down and evaluate progresses we've made. In the provisions of the law, in the provisions of the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, which is the global standard that we're using for tobacco control, there are, you know, provisions for creating awareness among the citizens, among the populace. We're doing a few. We're doing works here and there. Nigeria is a huge population of about 180 million people. I know that even your platform has, you know, given us access several times to talk about this issue, to talk about, you know, how it affects Africa as a continent. We need to do more. We need to move into the communities. We're trying to move to the communities. Last week, we are in a rural community in Abuja called Jahi community, where people don't even speak English. And let me also tell you this, that the tobacco industry itself, it's actually the vector we're talking about here. We're talking about a disease that has a vector. So the industry in every time has been moving to undermine every process of government, every process by civil society and the populace, not to you know, get more and more people addicted to smoking, because the fewer they are, the less profits, you know, they are going to make. We're talking about corporations that are bigger than several of our countries. And so you then come to the point about whether what we have today are even appropriate in terms of educating our people. You pick a pack of cigarettes in Nigeria, for example, and you see a warning, a so-called warning, that says the Federal Ministry of Health warns that smokers are liable to die young. You know, when you look at that sentence very well, it's basically saying somebody somewhere called the Federal Ministry of Health is saying this. And so we're moving, the world has moved to pictograms, you know, of what tobacco calls. The world has moved into short, sharp, pungent messages like tobacco kills, tobacco causes hypertension, tobacco, you know, hurts the heart, as we're having today. So we need to sit down again as a people, as Africans, to, you know, put teeth to our laws. In the case of Nigeria, that has the National Tobacco Control Regulations. We need to look at those critical provisions that we need to revise. We also to take the issue of public awareness, as you said, much more seriously than we have it currently.
All right, Mr. Bodeolu Femi, Director of Environmental Rights Action. Still remain with us. We'll come back to you to discuss further to our guest talking about the World No Tobacco Day. He's the Director of Environmental Rights Action, Bodelu Femi. Thank you very much for remaining with us. You mentioned something about the vectors earlier, which are, of course, the tobacco companies who are really the ones who push this product, this dangerous products down the throats of Nigerians and people who smoke everywhere. How do you deal with these vectors, these tobacco companies?
Yeah. Thanks very much, Kelechi. I mentioned the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control earlier, which is a global treaty initiated by the WHO. It currently has over 180 countries, including including Nigeria as a party. And our law, the National Tobacco Control Act, is actually fashioned after the FCTC. Now, the FCTC has a provision called Article 5.3. The object of that article is to recognize the role the tobacco industry had played over the years in slowing down tobacco control efforts. And it made a recommendation, which is that countries around the world should ensure that they protect public interest, public health, from the profit motive of the tobacco companies. And how do you do that? You do that by ensuring that the tobacco companies, like the tobacco companies, proxies and agents, do not have any way of interfering with those policies. And a case in question will be a country like Nigeria, where we know that we have, two of the world's biggest tobacco companies. So anytime those issues of tobacco control are being discussed, by the provision of Article 5.3, government can call them to give them instructions to say, look, your pack should be like this. To say, look, from today we are increasing taxes to this. But they should not have a say. Like mosquitoes don't have a say when we're discussing vaccines or medication for malaria. They should also not have a say when we're discussing how to rescue our people from tobacco addiction and the effects that it's causing on our society.
All right, but you talk about acts, you talk about articles. We also have seen, seen the measures that have been recommended by the WHO. How effective do you think that these laws have been over the years?
Look, the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, IK, is based on two major platforms: supply reduction and demand reduction. That is also what the Nigerian law is based on. So there are measures to restrict that environment that encourages people to smoke. What are those environments? You look at advertisement and promotion. You look at sponsorship. Do you understand? You look at their so-called, corporate social responsibility. So there is complete and total ban of tobacco advertising, sponsorship, and promotion, because we all remember the lout in Lagos, wet in Kano, all their concerts, promotions, including a concert that was then called Grab the Mic, where they tried to use it to recruit our youths into smoking. They are all banned now under our law. We know about banning of smoking in public places. That has been expanded. Public schools, schools, hospitals, government houses, etc., stadia, and the rest of them. So you restrict those environments. Not only that, you also want to keep people that doesn't smoke safe.
Okay.
So those are part of those provisions. Taxation is a very important policy. Why is taxation important is because, let's look at the case of Nigeria. A pack of cigarettes in Nigeria goes for about 200 naira. That same pack of cigarette is going for £5. $7 in US. And so you begin to say, who is subsidizing that? The government has just this year marginally, beginning from tomorrow, June 1, an increase in excise duty in Nigeria. And we're saying, no, this is okay, but government still need to do more.
All right.
Government needs to impose taxes on cigarettes so that our kids will not be able to access. Government needs to ban sale of cigarettes in single sticks. That is already in our law. That enables kids and the rest of our people to go and buy a stick for 5 naira, a stick for 10 naira.
Okay.
And also at the level of supply.
All right, we'll have to leave it there.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much, Director Environmental Rights Action, Bodeolu Femi, for joining us on this World No Tobacco Day. Thank you very much for joining us. You know, it's interesting because when you talk about all the acts and what have you, what about people who want to get off tobacco addiction? Are there places for them to get help? Wow. That's another point.